Hey everyone, Georgie here with Global Matters. Donbass. What do you know about Donbass? It's a region or something in Ukraine. It's, I don't know, there's a lot of Russians supposedly, if we listen to Russian propaganda. But what do we really know about Donbass, about its situation? I had the pleasure, let's put it this way, to listen lately to a lot of different discussions in the Western Hemisphere about why this war started, what did the people in Donbass want, how certain things were happening. And it's a long discussion about why and how certain things were going on there. We potentially might do a video on that. If you want to know a little bit before and have more free time, there is a nice book by Denis Kazansky and Marina Vorotintseva, which is called How Ukraine Lost Donbass. Now, I have my copy in Ukrainian, and I'm not sure if it has been translated to English or not, but I'm pretty sure if you can find an electronic version, and I will try to Google up, and if I find, then maybe you can use ChatGPT or any other solution to at least get a synopsis of certain, like part by part by part, and get some interesting insights into what were the politics, what were the people, and what were the situation in Donbass. But everything is surprisingly not as Russian propaganda is painting it to be. As much as a lot of simplified takes on Donbass and the population there, these takes are mostly centered about, well, there was a lot of people that really wanted to join Russia, and because of that, Donbass decided to just withdraw itself from Ukraine, and all the farmers and all the miners just rose up. They pillaged Ukrainian arms depots, get themselves tanks, even those that were never produced or handed to Ukraine, and then supposedly assaulted Ukrainian forces by kicking them out. Is it really true? No, it's not. Obviously, it's not. I'm not going to delve too much into the situation. But the point is very, very simple. Russia has planned their operation. The biggest question that was after 2014, because long story short, Ukraine started to get a handle on the Russia stimulated insurgency in Donbass. Because there was such a low support for these Russian insurgents like Girkin, Strelkov, that came in from Russia and tried to stir up riots, to try to use local criminal elements, a lot of them, from local colonies, there are certain, really sick in the brain people that really just wanted to commit crime and do a lot unlawfulness. There was a lot of these people there. Maybe not a lot, but there were some. The point is that Ukrainian army that was, let's be honest, I know that even my Ukrainian viewers will agree on that in 2013, Ukrainian army was shit. It was in shambles. It was completely bad. Let's just put it bad. And most of what was fighting there was some kind of local militia units, like the same Azov, as terrifying name it was for Russians. In reality, Azov battalion was just a bunch of guys that just got their hands on some weapons and had certain vehicles that were, roughly covered by some metal sheets, and they were trying to find these Russian insurgents. And despite all of that, when the actual Ukrainian armed forces, as little as they were, as bad as they were, with no proper training, no really good logistics, nothing there, they were still doing a very good progress on recapturing territories that Russia tried to decouple from Ukraine. And only at certain moment, when Russia intervened directly from Russian side, this is something that's very often a lot of talking heads or a lot of people that have no idea about conflict, that they completely miss out, is the fact that Russia intervened even directly with their forces. It's only then when we got in the whole situation and mess with the Minsk agreement. Another something that you might want to know about the Denis Kazansky, which is one of the authors of the book, is that he was in a so-called three-way party group. I think it was Ukraine, Belarus, Russia, if I'm not wrong. And he was participating there. So he was actually listening to a lot of these Russian talking points directly. So he's quite a knowledgeable guy. He's a blogger himself, but he's doing his content mostly in Ukrainian. And if you don't speak, obviously, you might not follow him. But what is the most important is that what it turned out to be. Some people think that Russia captured Crimea to make it as something that they can put forward on to the world, onto the other regions in Ukraine, and see how good Crimea has it. But that's not the story. Crimea and people in Crimea were living despite the Russian occupation. They were living there and are living there in spite of it. And they are not really thriving right now. Donbass, on the other hand, Russians that came into Donbass were looking at it at very, very specific angle. They knew for a fact, because while Crimea was incorporated into Russia by Russian law, by fake referenda and whatever, Donbass was not. And Donbass, because of a lot of that, was perceived by people in there, by Russians in Donbass that came to Donbass, and Russian troops and everything else, as just a region that potentially can go back to Ukraine. So they had absolute raiding and pillaging mentality. So people, like, cars were taken from people, jobs were taken for people, people got exploited. So if for example, some Russian oligarch or criminal mob boss was able to get his hands on some of the local coal mines, because a lot of work in Donbass was related to coal mining. So he would just try to work the population there almost to death. There were multiple cases when mines collapsed and whatnot. And it absolutely destroyed Donbass. It was a picture across every part of the occupied territory. The population that lived there does not thrive. The only images and only representation that people are having, especially in the West, from Donbass, is the picture that is drawn by the propaganda channels. People have been living there under a mob rule. They're living there under the threat for their lives. If you have never seen Russian Roulette by Simon Ostrovsky, I really recommend. The kind of the bottom line of that whole trip by Simon and the Russian Roulette, that once he ended up in Donbass, he went to the cellar, and to the cellar is pretty much often a death sentence. Simon was lucky, but a lot of other locals were not. You can try Googling Izolatia, like isolation prison in Donbass as well. That's going to find a lot of news for you. But this was the life, and this is still the life for a lot of people in Donbass. People are desperate, but they cannot resist, because everyone that are in charge right now is a mafia rule. They're having not really a life. It's a survival, and survival in a very, very poor conditions. Now, we know that humans are capable of surviving pretty much anywhere. But what is happening right now in Donbass, it's atrocious. And a lot of people that are actually subscribed to Russian military, joined Russian military with the promises of some payments, were doing it because there is no other way that the family would be fed. That is the awful truth. The awful truth is that there were part of the population in Donbass that, because of their family was starving and had nothing going for them, they served up and said, we're going to go kill Ukrainians. because there is no escape. You go to Russia, you're nobody there because Russia doesn't really recognize these regions. Even right now, remember Russia supposedly annexed these regions? Even right now, they're not part of Russia. They are not treated as part of Russia. Passports that are issued, even Russian passports supposedly that are issued inside Donbass, they are not treated the same way in Russia proper territory. Wrapping it all up, question was, what is the life in Donbass like? Life in Donbass is a life of on an edge, on a knife edge. On one side, there is a absolute desperation because there is very little job opportunities, very little study opportunity. There is no career, there is no job market, there is no labor market protection. There is only certain jobs that will exploit you because either there are resources to dig in, or maybe there are certain factories that they would like to just exploit because, hey, it's a gray area of the world. So you're a human resource to be exploited by. And there are no laws. No one is going to protect you. You're a nobody. That's on the one side of the edge. On the other side of the edge, if you try to resist, if you try to demand your rights, if you try to say, well, maybe Ukrainian life wasn't as bad, you're going to end up in a cellar or in prison or whatever else. And chances are that people are just going to disappear. There has been recently a video about a man that was yelling at the Russian military, and that man was telling all these horrible stories about how Russian troops that they entered his village basically raped and tortured everyone in that village. He was telling how he himself got tortured by them, showing like where they jumped on his joints, showing how they tried to threaten and kill him. And the only thing that the operator, which was Russian, said to all of that, oh, so you're pro-Ukrainian. Life in Donbass is hell on earth. And that is an important point because that really describes why a lot of people sitting in a Western comfortable chairs, a lot of these leftists or far-right commentators, they have no fucking clue what they're talking about. Thank you so much for watching this, guys. If you're seeing this from this channel, I also have my second channel where I cover situation in Ukraine with map updates and everything. Join that. In other parts, I love you all. Slava Ukrainian, guys. And I'll see you next time.